Today I'm replacing the strut assembly on this 2000 Camry. It just swashes down the road and they're completely shot. The first step is to jack up the car. I'm going to do one at a time and take off the wheel. Before jacking up the car, I put the car in park and set the emergency brake. Break loose these lug nuts. I'm going to use a jack stand for safety since I don't want to work on the car with it, just supported just with this. Lower it back down onto the jack stand. Okay. Nice and solid. Remove this bolt so I can loosen this bracket to the brake line. I didn't bring any Allen wrenches today, so hopefully this is kind of jammed from behind and I can unscrew this. Otherwise, this is going to be a little bit tough. This is the sway bar link and 14mm wrench. And I have to improvise because I don't have an Allen wrench to hold that. This looks like it will work. You can see how there's some pressure on this bolt. It's kind of pushed up like that from behind. This is spring loaded. I only have one side of the car jacked up, so the sway bar is twisted, putting pressure on this. So I'm going to have to relieve that pressure a little bit to lower this down. I'm just finding something to pry on it a little bit. There we go. Okay. You can see how this is spring loaded right here. So you just be careful when you take off this bolt and you only have one side of the car jacked up, because this, if you had your hands in there and it slipped, it could really give you a pretty good whack. The next part of the process is I'm going to remove these two bolts. The 22mm socket I'm using. Now the other side, sometimes these are a little bit tight. I'm going to use a helper. Don't put your finger in there, it could shear it right off. Okay, now that's loose. There it is. It's just hanging by 3 bolts at the top now. 14mm socket. Before I finish unloosening this one, I'm going to hold it so it doesn't land on my foot. I'm replacing this as a unit. This upper part is called the strut mount, and the whole weight of the car sits on this, and there's a bearing in there when the wheels turn, and every bump is translated into here, and these things wear out and they rattle around and make a lot of noise. And I'm not sure about the spring, but I would think over the years the spring becomes fatigued and doesn't work as well and loses some of its correct tension. So I think replacing this as a complete unit is the best way to go, and that way I don't have to mess with taking the old spring out and taking this apart, which is dangerous and requires special tools. The quality of struts varies substantially, so you have to check some reviews and see, what other people say online. These are KYB, that's what I decided to go with, but you can make your own decision in that regard. The price and quality varies substantially. Okay, here goes the new one. I'm sure that you could look up a torque specification on these bolts if you feel that's important. I don't. That's just my personal opinion. So we know it's in the correct orientation because here's the metal bracket for the sway bar link, and here's the bracket for the brake. Okay, again, do not put your fingers in here to line this up. Don't even think about it. Line it up with a bolt. Okay, now I'm using the tire iron to help me. There we go. Alrighty, it's in. I'm sure there's a torque specification for these, but as far as I'm concerned, tight is fine. I think that's good enough, and if it were spinning I would use this to hold the other side, but it didn't. Okay, tighten the other one, same way. This is the lower control arm here. It's worth taking a look at this rubber bushing. There's a common oil leak on this side of the engine that occurs on some Camrys, and this gets all oily and deteriorates that bushing, and a lot of times these lower control arms go bad, but this one doesn't appear to be too oily, and I'm just prying around on it a little bit. Feels pretty solid. It's not moving much, so I think this one's okay, but take a look at yours and just make sure this lower control arm isn't worn out, because it's going to be impossible to realign the car if this isn't in good condition. Okay, next I'm going to put the sway bar link back on. I'm just prying on it, get it in the position. I want to do this without smashing my finger. So I'm holding this in a way that if this wrench slips off, my fingers are not going to get smashed. I'm not putting my fingers up here, putting them down here. There we go. If this stud in here starts to spin again until I get it tight, I'll have to use my improvised method of holding it still, since I don't have a Allen wrench, but it looks like it's going to cooperate and just stay wedged in and let me tighten it up. Again, you could torque this, or you could just tighten it to a reasonable amount, in my opinion. There we go. Now the brake line. Not too tight here, this would easily break. Okay, that's it. This is a complete assembly now. It's installed. All I need to do is put the wheel back on and tighten up the lug bolts and lower the car. I have this one in now, and I just want to see the difference. It's nice and firm. Haven't put this one in yet. Look at this. Squishy and mushy. Be put in as pairs. You can see it wouldn't make sense to have one good strut and one bad strut. The car would be unequal. So the next for me is to put in the left front to match the pair, and that's it.